This episode of Magic Rays of Light is dedicated to the memory of Parasite and Dr. Brain actor Lee Sun-kyun.
If you or someone you know are experiencing depression or any other trauma, remember, you don't have to go through it alone. Connect with organizations that can provide support by visiting apple.com/here to help. Hello and welcome to episode 104 of Magic Rays of Light, a podcast exploring the world of Apple TV and so much more. It's a new year. I am very refreshed alongside my co-host, Mr. Devin Dundee. How are you?
Happy New Year, Sigmund. I am doing great. Back from holiday break, had a wonderful time with family, and I'm excited to dive into everything Apple TV together.
Well, we do have a lot to cover. Not something that's usual, really, the first week of January, but how times have changed. On the show this week, we recap an exciting Slow Horses Season 3. We highlight Apple original crime thriller, Criminal Record, and our Secret Santa film reviews. But first, we welcome the new year by looking ahead for Apple TV hardware and software. No doubt, Devon, with the Vision Pro launch quickly approaching, there may not be too much time in January for our hopes when it comes to new Apple TV hardware. So, let's get into it. What is the Apple TV missing right now, do you think, that you want in the next iteration should we receive one this year?
I think the first question would be, is there going to be an iteration this year? Which is always tough to predict. If you had asked me a couple years ago if we were going to get two back-to-back updates 2 years in a row, I would have said, no way. So I'm actually hopeful for new hardware this year. I think I'm just going to take that approach each year now, just going in with the hope that we will see new Apple TV hardware because it's obviously a product that Apple's still iterating on. And the big update that I would like to see this year hardware-wise would be the graphics cores from either the M3 chip or the A17 Pro chip coming to the Apple TV for gaming. Apple made a huge deal about this with the switch to the 3nm process on both the iPhone and the Mac. With this big push into gaming on those platforms, that the Apple TV needs to be included in that. Because, of course, it hooks up to the biggest screen in your house, right? It's where a lot of people play so many of their games. Of course, mobile gaming is huge, but when you're talking about AAA games, people love to have those up on their big screens. And so I think an Apple TV that's able to play those games as well with as much fidelity and frame rate as an iPhone or a spec'd out Mac, I think would be incredible. So I don't know, probably not an M3. I think that might be overshooting it a little bit, but an A17 Pro at least in an Apple TV I think would be amazing. Maybe in something we talked about before, like the higher end Apple TV, maybe even an Apple TV Pro specifically geared towards the highest graphics performance. Again, I may be getting a little carried away with my wishes here, but I think however they do it, that graphics performance, they're very proud of it, and I think they want to roll it out across the lineup, including the Apple TV.
I think it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, we're seeing the high-res games now being available on iOS with the launch of the Resident Evil remakes and soon the Death Stranding Director's Cut coming to iOS. It'd be great to be able to see that come to the big screen as well. I think the bigger question here is whether it's going to be a M processor. At one point, I thought the A processors would be what we see in the Apple TV throughout time. But seeing as M1 and M2 and M3 kind of propagate through so many different devices beyond iPhone, obviously iPad, Mac, the upcoming Apple Vision Pro as well. I wonder if we do actually end up seeing that come to the Apple TV this year.
Well, I would love to see the M series come to the Apple TV, and I think one way they could do that is through more segmentation in the Apple TV lineup. We've seen them split the Apple TV 4K into kind of two different offerings at different price points. And so we're always trying to push that higher end one as high as it'll go, but I think also too, If they offer an Apple TV with the M series processor, they probably also want to offer a more affordable option. And I think the lower they can get that price point closer to maybe that sweet spot of $99, I think that would be great as well. So while I always want to push it as high as it can go, and I'll be going for that high-end version when it does come, I would like to see an even more affordable version as well, just to get it in as many people's homes as possible.
Obviously, we talked about soundbars and all of these weird and wacky ideas for future Apple TV hardware. Maybe that will come this year. One thing that I think we definitely need in terms of new hardware is maybe some accessories, because putting a sub $2,000 iPhone on a mount above your TV may not be the most practical or safe solution in all environments, especially with small children around. Maybe it's going to take a third party to build their own continuity camera app that integrates with their hardware first, and then we'll eventually see a rollout of camera accessories that were hinted at last year's WWDC. Let's talk about software, because one of the main reasons that I think Apple could go down the M route rather than the A processor this year is to do with power consumption. Because the A chip is really a mobile processing chip, right? The Apple TV is not a mobile device. And so I do wonder if that's going to make for a good reason for there to be a transition. There may also be good reasoning with regard to Apple's green initiative as well, given the power that the M series of chips are capable of with that lower power draw. I'm going to start off with some software hopes for this year. My main being the downloading of films and TV shows for better, consistent bit rates, and more importantly, greener power consumption, right? So being able to download films that maybe you have, or TV shows from your up next queue that you have queued and you're going to be watching that night. Maybe you can pre-queue them via your iOS device, and then the Apple TV work out when is a good time to get the greenest power. That also meaning then you get the better, more consistent bit rates for both sound and vision, meaning you're going to get the premium experience there for services that integrate, and this may be a key benefit to subscribing through Apple channels. So that's where I'm going with my big tvOS wish this year. I've got a few others, but let's hear one from you.
All right, I think I'm going to stick in the TV app as well for my wish. I would really like a rethinking of the detail panes on title pages in the TV app, better credit sections that are more complete, showing off everyone involved, not just the main people, richer pages for actors, directors, writers, etc. We have collections sometimes on different people that are cool, but if we could just have dedicated pages for each performer and creator that doesn't just have a list of their projects, but maybe puts it a little more context, I think would be great. And just an easier way to understand where you can access a particular title. This is something I've been running into, especially with the whole Hulu Disney Plus consolidation thing, having to go to the bottom of each title's listing and specifically choose Disney Plus. I feel like there could be a better way of doing that. So there's been these apps that have popped up, especially over the past year or so, like Call Sheet, or even something like Sequel, where you can get the details of these different elements, but I would love to have a first-party solution from Apple as well.
Let's head out of the TV app for a moment and talk about the Apple TV UI itself. We've had a lot of changes. We've had Control Center. We've had the new sidebar navigation with the language recently changing in the latest beta to saying sidebar and not menu. So that definitely seems to be the way we're headed. Where do you want to see things go on that side of things?
I want to see them continue to push that new UI kind of language that they're doing. tvOS has always had different elements from different eras of Apple's design language. And I think one place where the age is really showing is the Settings app. I feel like they could do something there to make it more modern and easier to navigate. So I'd like to see them revisit the Settings app, especially in light of what they're doing with Control Center and the sidebar and the TV app. And even the video player, it's come a long way as well. So I really think if they could turn that on the whole system, but especially Settings, an app that contains so many important features, but just hasn't gotten a lot of love, I think. Do you have any wishes when it comes to the Apple TV UI?
I do, but more in the sense of things I want to stay the same. The home screen. I have always loved the home screen. I think it's very approachable. I think where everything else has got a little bit complicated, I do love how approachable the home screen is with the big app tiles. But I would love to see what I think is long overdue, some customization per user. So if I'm logged in, I'm going to get my sports apps. If mum or grandma logs in, they're going to have the apps that are most meaningful to them. And maybe then you have a home screen that is for shared viewing as well. Kind of playing off what has happened with iOS and the custom home screens for different focus modes. Apart from that, though, well, two things that I feel like are missing that hopefully we'll see, and I feel are long overdue, is we've been able to look at cameras in the home for forever. But what happens once you see someone at the doorbell, you're like, hey, I've got to finish this scene, I'll be down in 2 minutes. You've got no way of telling them via the Apple TV, and yet there are microphones in the Siri remote, there are microphones on connected HomePods, and there's no way of being able to integrate those. So I'm hoping for better integration this year with Apple Home from that point of view. Of course, automations and stuff, but this is not a wish list episode. But one thing I will say that I've been hoping for years and years and years, it's been in every wish list, and I'm hoping this is the year everyone hears it. We've had shared spatial audio via AirPods now. That's conquered. The next on my list is multi-audio out for AirPods with synced bilingual playback, meaning that two people can watch the same show and connect together through film or television, but listen in their chosen language, which would be an incredible benefit for Apple Originals that are truly global. So that is my big wish for this year. And I think some food for thought going into 2024 for Apple TV from both a hardware and software level, Devon.
We have endless wishes for Apple TV and tvOS. I think for now, we'll stop it there and keep the rest for another day, Sigmund. I think we have to talk about some Apple Originals now, though.
Yeah, I mean, as for Apple Originals, Devon, we will have a much better understanding of Apple's release schedule when they hold their day at this year's TCA Winter Press Tour next month. But wow, do we already have an incredible lineup this year? Honestly, Masters of the Air, the new look, Constellation, and the return of the Big Door Prize, all to come. But we begin this year, as we mean to go on, with our highlight for this week, the brilliant Criminal Record.
In the heart of London, an anonymous phone call draws two brilliant detectives, a young woman in the early stages of her career and a well-connected man determined to protect his legacy, into a fight to correct an old miscarriage of justice.
Go ahead, just tell us.
I killed her.
I'm investigating an allegation. What if he's innocent?
That case was investigated fairly. We got our man.
No, you got a confession.
She's got it in for us.
That's the game, collateral damage.
Are you going to stop me?
Yeah.
Now, Sigmund, I know this is one that you've been very much looking forward to and have had a chance to preview. Tell us a little bit about Criminal Record.
So this one's written and executive produced by Paul Ruttman alongside Elaine Collins. It also executive produced by Peter Capaldi and Cush Jumbo in what is an incredibly powerful, gritty, London-based crime thriller set against the backdrop of a flawed justice system, whilst inhabiting the difficulty in speaking truth to power, especially when those in power are covering up their own previous misgivings. Cush Jumbo plays a headstrong detective sergeant in June Lenker, who begins investigating a suspected domestic violence call from a mysterious woman claiming a man has been falsely imprisoned for the murder of his girlfriend. And quickly, June finds herself in the crosshairs of DCI Daniel Haggerty, played by Peter Capaldi, who does everything in his power to have her moved away from the case as a means of protecting his highly regarded legacy as he sees out his final chapters as part of the Force. But June is determined to get to the truth and reinstall the faith in a broken system poisoned by the dirty waters of prejudice by any means necessary. And I really do mean that. This is a brilliant piece of drama, which includes an intro that has an eerie reworking of the Dreamliners' Just Me and You. The perfect introduction to the idea that what you're about to watch is not afraid to serve up some difficult to stomach subject matter. And it is so well written, and I'm going to say that a couple of times here, that you will find yourself in tears or in some episodes absolutely seething at the often injustice on show. Beyond the begrudging respect and jostling between the old and the new guard that slides nicely alongside that depicted in, say, Michael Mann's classic Heat. Instead of giving the viewer more dead bodies than necessary, the drama deals with other aspects of serious crime, often dismissed for background scenery in what we've seen before, including those victims of crime that end up in care, the families who also become the victims of injustice, and the everlasting effect on how the police are looked upon, especially those of colour who join the force. Kathy Tyson, who plays the mother of the falsely imprisoned man, offers a tour de force performance, as does Andor's Rasak Kakoi, who plays the son brought into care following the loss of his mother. His links to Daniel Haggerty are closer than initially revealed, with many layers pulled back through the superb performance of Peter Capaldi. From a night lighting chauffeur to a corrupt detective chief inspector, his relationships to his old colleagues, his victims, and the reveal of his lackluster private life will have you question time and again how in control he was of his actions despite his assured demeanour. And the many dimensions to Haggerty may at times cause you to feel some form of sympathy before quickly needing to take a thorough shower scrub afterwards. Peter Capaldi is incredible, but the person who really lights up the screen is Cush Jumbo, who, on the other hand, gives a career-best performance, which, beyond her role as a detective sergeant, explores her role as a mother in a crumbling biracial marriage, whilst tackling her own mother's mental health difficulties and workplace harassment, whilst also protecting her young son from the racially unjust evils of the outside world and the misjudged hidden prejudice within her own family dynamic. There are some scenes here, Devon, of violence that show the physical preparedness that Cush Jumbo got into for this role, but no scenes will stay with me more than that of a mother picking up her petrified 12-year-old son from a police station hours after he's falsely brought into custody for possession of drugs, swabbed for DNA, and registered on the criminal database without adult supervision. There are moments like that that will literally have you shaking with anger and just gripped by the drama. And I will say Criminal Record had me gripped from start to finish because the writing of Paul Ruttman has each episode climb on your back like a ghoul. Each episode just refuses to be forgotten. It leaves you with the questions to contend with beyond the screen into your everyday life and away from just the show's central story. And that's what makes the drama truly unforgettable. You probably caught that once I started watching, I couldn't stop. When we talked about this show in the lead up to this episode, I think I was on episode 3. And by the end of the evening, I was on episode 8. This is something that we don't normally do. Normally I need a break. I've had breaks for upcoming screeners. It's rare that I am gripped to the point that I have to just watch everything. I think this is the first time actually probably since Hijack that happened to me. And I'll be watching again each week as each episode arrives, beginning with the premiere of Criminal Record's first 2 episodes, available this Wednesday, January 10th, across all of your screens on Apple TV+.
Well, that's an excellent overview segment. I will say, if you're planning on checking out Criminal Record this upcoming week, be sure to set aside time for both episodes that premiere on Wednesday. I've only seen the first episode, and I have to say I didn't have time to watch the second one afterwards, and it physically pained me to have to close the app and walk away, because it really is that gripping, like you said, and it just draws you in. And I'm so excited to be watching this week to week. I'm going to try to stick to the weekly schedule instead of getting ahead, but it's very encouraging to hear that you just had to keep hitting play on the next episode all the way through. So Criminal Record comes out next Wednesday, January 10th, but there's a massive release on Apple TV Plus coming just 2 days later. Let's move to release news now. We found out this week that Killers of the Flower Moon will make its Apple TV Plus streaming debut on January 12th. So if you've been waiting for it to come to Apple TV Plus, January 12th will be your day. Of course, Killers of the Flower Moon has been available for rental and purchase for some time now, but I really think this is its release to its full intended audience, the people that Apple have really been advertising it to for a long time. Of course, it's an Apple original film, and we know that all Apple original films eventually end up on Apple TV+. So I'm really excited to see this one coming on January 12th.
That isn't the only news when it comes to Apple original films. I'm hearing whispers of a January 9th premium VOD premiere for Napoleon coming to the TV app and other storefronts. We'll have to see whether or not that actually comes to fruition. But the next Apple original film that is coming to theatres in just less than a month is, of course, Matthew Vaughn's Argylle. And in the lead up to that, we have, after a series of delays, Ellie Conway's debut spy novel, Argylle, the inspiration for the upcoming Apple original film of the same name, which will be available in hardback, ebook, and audio formats. In some regions, it's already available. I pre-ordered the special edition hardback, signed by the author, which is funny in itself if you know the mystery that is surrounding the author. Not yet shipped, apparently not been received from the publisher just yet. The book is now available both in audio formats and ebook in the UK and Europe, and I think coming to North America on January 9th. There's been a lot of mystery about this, but beyond the author, what do you think about the book? Because we've been getting rave reviews about the book and a little bit more background this past week.
Yeah, we've heard good things. I honestly thought that this book was just a piece of viral marketing that was never actually going to come, because, I mean, it's so close to the movie's release now. They just kept pushing it back and back. I really thought the book was just going to turn out to be just a fake thing that they were messing with us on. But yeah, it's a real book. You can really buy it and read it and get ready for the movie. It's still a mystery to me what the exact relationship is between the book and the movie, because, of course, Ellie Conway is the main character of the film, while she's also the author of this book. And so it's still interesting exactly how the book is being adapted, or what that exact relationship is, or even to what extent reading the book is going to spoil the film for you. I still think there's so many questions that haven't yet been answered. Is there anything that you can kind of shine light on for us?
Well, the main takeaway is, if you're going to get the book, you don't have to worry about this spoiling the film, because this is book 1 of the Argylle series from Ellie Conway, whoever she may be. Whereas the Argylle movie is apparently based on book 4 from this unknown author, according to Matthew Vaughn. So there will be no spoilers here, but the book is getting rave reviews, with The Telegraph calling it an excellent spy thriller in its 4-star review. Very, very excited for the film. The trailer that I suspect everyone's checked out at this point and is absolutely marvelled by actually only features footage from the first 28 minutes of the film itself. So we're in for quite a wild ride when Argylle premieres in theatres on February 2nd. No doubt that is on my list, and I love a list, Evan, including my wish lists. and favourites that have returned to the recently retired iTunes Movies and iTunes TV show apps in quick haste, I'd say, on tvOS via a server-side update. So you can go to either of those retired apps, and where you'll be prompted to go to the Apple TV app, there is actually a tab there that will take you to your previous wish lists. Right now, there isn't a way of adding to those wish lists unless you've got an older iOS device that you haven't updated and are using that way. I am currently getting round the lack of the iTunes apps by doing exactly that, thanks to a lovely Christmas gift over the holiday season. Some of those titles in my wish list are getting 4K upgrades this January, including Varsity Blues and The Raid Redemption, with other expected upgrades this month, including Kramer vs. Kramer, one of my all-time favourites, Punch Drunk Love, and Sleepless in Seattle. But as far as apps go, we are also ticking off some of our wishes, but this time for Apple Fitness Plus as we bring in the new year.
Yeah, I've just been thinking about how far Apple Fitness Plus has really come since it launched as a service, and it's just constantly getting updates. And as I was thinking about that, Apple put out a press release this week with a bunch of updates coming to Apple Fitness Plus this month. We'll be seeing sound meditations come to the app to help you feel relaxed and restored. We're going to see a new collection called Strength, Core, and Yoga for Golfers, led by Rose Zhang and Coach Kyle. So if you're a golfer and you're getting ready for the season, this will be a great way to get prepared for that. There's a new series of artist spotlights featuring Super Bowl performers, starting on January 8th with Rihanna, January 15th, Britney Spears, January 22nd, U2, and then on February 5th, of course, this year's Super Bowl performer, Usher, each of them getting their own artist spotlights to prepare for the big day. There's a new season of Time to Walk with new ways to listen. Guests this season include Al Roker, Trixie Mattel, Lily Singh, Common, and Coleman Domingo. I'm really looking forward to that Common episode. Maybe he'll talk about some of his experiences on Silo. Episodes are now available in Apple Podcasts for Apple Fitness Plus subscribers. Now, of course, you'll miss out on some of the photos and the fitness integration aspect of it, but if you prefer to listen in Apple Podcasts, that's an option. And if you're not a Fitness Plus subscriber, you can actually get a sampling of 10 episodes of Time to Walk available for free in the Apple Podcasts app. Kind of give you a sampling of what those are like. It's an interesting format. It's kind of hard to explain, but I think it's really cool to experience. So if you're not an Apple Fitness Plus subscriber, definitely check those out in the podcast app.
One thing, I know you're a big Apple Fitness and Apple Watch user. For personal health reasons, I've had to take my Apple Watch off recently, but it's just been put back on January 1st. And I was worried that I'd missed out on this, so I'm really, really happy to see this on the list. The Ring in the New Year award. For some reason, I thought it was always a New Year's Day workout, and I thought I'd missed it. But reading this, I think I've still got a chance.
That's right. It's available all month long. All you have to do to get it is close your ring 7 days in a row during the month of January, and you'll get the Ring in the New Year award. So you haven't missed out on it yet, Sigmund. You've still got a chance to get your streak going and earn that award. One cool final addition to Apple Fitness Plus is a new partnership with Anytime Fitness, where if you are an Anytime Fitness member, you get Apple Fitness Plus included with your membership. And so when you go to the gym to start working out, you can pull out your phone and do an Apple Fitness Plus workout on their equipment. And you can also talk to your personal trainer at Anytime Fitness, and they can recommend classes from Apple Fitness Plus for you. So that's a really cool integration for those who maybe don't enjoy working out at home or don't have access to the equipment at home, but you have an Anytime Fitness that you're able to go to. This is a cool way to tie these two things together and really get things going this new year.
I absolutely love that integration. Hopefully we see that come to more regions as the year progresses. And in between our workouts in 2024, of course, we're going to be sat down a lot watching upcoming Apple originals. And I think a number of which either currently or about to head into production. This week we learn of Invasion, with Season 3 beginning filming in Vancouver in early February, ahead of an official renewal announcement by Apple. So we got in there first. And Firebug, starring Taron Egerton, will begin filming in March. The upcoming Apple original series will follow a troubled detective and an arson investigator as they follow the clues left by two serial arsonists.
A lot of the team from Blackbird coming back together for that one. Really interested to see what they do there. I think it's going to be great. Severance has reconvened filming, and it isn't expected to finish until May, according to scheduling revealed through Ben Stiller's auction for a chance to visit the set during the shooting schedule. However, it's unclear at the current moment if Season 3 is going to be shot back-to-back with Season 2, or if all of this is just filming Season 2. I guess we'll have to wait and find out, but I can't wait to see more Severance whenever it does come. Finally, the White Lotus actor Leo Woodall has been spotted shooting Varsity for Apple TV+, as reported by the Cambridge Independent. Despite the reporting of the project being an upcoming film, it's likely that Varsity is an upcoming series, seeing as production began in May.
Let's talk about awards. We are in full flow for award season. We'll get into that in a moment, but we have a number of wins. Starting in the UK with the UK Films Critic Association, giving this year's Best Actress gong to Lily Gladstone.
And then we have a number of regional awards in the United States, starting with the Critics Association of Central Florida, awarding Best Documentary to Still, a Michael J. Fox movie. The North Carolina Film Critics Association giving Best Documentary to, you guessed it, Still, a Michael J. Fox movie. And Best Actress to who other than Lily Gladstone. The Oklahoma Film Critics Circle Award winners were announced this week, including Best Film for Killers of the Flower Moon, Best Director for Martin Scorsese, Best Actress for, I'm going to give you a second to guess this one, Lily Gladstone, Best Adapted Screenplay for Eric Roth and Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon, and Best Score for Robbie Robertson for Killers of the Flower Moon. Lots of love for Killers of the Flower Moon out of Oklahoma.
And lastly, just this week, Columbus Film Critics Association winners included Best Film for Killers of the Flower Moon, Best Director for Martin Scorsese of Killers of the Flower Moon, alongside Best Ensemble, and Best Film Editing for Thelma Schoonmaker, who celebrated her birthday just this week, and Best Score for the late Robbie Robertson for Killers of the Flower Moon. This year's award season kicks off truly with the first televised awards ceremony, that being Golden Globes, airing on both the CBS app and Paramount Plus in the US this Sunday, January 7th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. For those outside of the US, the CBS app is probably your best bet, or you could always activate that free trial of Paramount Plus, the US service.
Very cool. I think we'll be waiting with bated breath to see how Apple Originals fare at the Golden Globes. But if you need something to fill the time in the meantime, we've got a great slew of Apple TV releases this week, starting with 3 new games coming to Apple Arcade. Those include Tamagotchi Adventure Kingdom, where you join adorable hero Mamechi in restoring harmony to the Tamagotchi planet after a mysterious impact shakes their world. Then there's Corn Sweeper, a relaxing and whimsical reimagining of the beloved logic puzzle game Minesweeper from Jamaican solo developer Wabutter. Players pop delicious popcorn and avoid explosions, all set to a relaxing and original lo-fi inspired soundtrack with reggae infusions. That one sounds really cool. And then finally, we've got the addition of Blackjack by Mobility Wear Plus, which is iPhone and iPad only. The other two, of course, are available on Apple TV as well. So lots to play on Apple Arcade. Those are their big releases for this month. We'll have to catch up again in February with what they add next month.
As for Friday and Apple Originals, we have the penultimate episodes of For All Mankind and Monarch Legacy of Monsters. Both absolutely captivated me throughout the holiday season. And as we previously mentioned, the rumoured premiere of Napoleon on premium VOD via the Apple TV app. Followed on Wednesday by our highlight, the 2-episode premiere of Criminal Record. But, of course, we don't end there because, as with every week, we have some extras, and they're all YouTube related this week.
Yes, Apple on their YouTube channel this week posted a toast to 2023, a nice little look back at Apple Originals this past year. And they've got this really interesting series of short videos called Monarch Legacy Monsters Titan Sightings. Every time a new Titan shows up on the show, they will, first of all, do an Instagram post where they show the person's reaction and then do swipe to look up, and you slide over and then you see the Titan, which is very funny. But they also have these YouTube clips highlighting the design and appearance of each Titan, which is very cool as well. If you're like me, you watch those clips and you have thoughts on them that you want to share, you now can do so in the YouTube comment section on the Apple TV channel, because they've enabled comments for all of their videos. Sigmund and I both will probably be hanging out there from time to time, so be sure to join us and share your comments on what you think about the videos.
Very, very cool. One show that I think there's going to be plenty of comments about, especially with its very exciting finale as we saw out 2023. That is, of course, Slow Horses, with its third season seeing a romantic liaison in Istanbul threatening to expose a buried MI5 secret in London. When Jackson Lamb and his team of misfits are dragged into the fight, they find themselves caught in a conspiracy that threatens the future, not just of Slough House, but MI5 itself. And we'll be recapping this season with some spoilers right after this clip.
A team from MI5 has gone rogue.
There will be a reckoning.
What's the plan?
I need good agents, but I'll just have the slow horses.
Some backup might be handy.
Well, I'm busy.
Don't think you're getting a gold star.
So, another season in the world of Slough House and a corrupt MI5. Before your thoughts, Devon, just give a little bit of a summary of everything that happened this season.
Yeah, let's jump into it. To start off, Sean Donovan, played by Sope Derisu, is sent to intercept a confidential document that his girlfriend Allison, played by Catherine Wasterson, is planning to leak. She discovers this and runs, only to later be discovered dead by Sean. Sometime later, Sean's hired by Home Secretary Peter Judd as part of a Tiger team to kidnap Catherine Standish as a test of MI5's security. As a distraction, the Tiger team convinces River that he has to break into MI5's records room or Standish will be harmed. The mastermind behind the ruse is revealed to be none other than James Webb, who we know from previous seasons and is now working as a private consultant. Sean betrays his employer and holds Standish captive until he's granted access to MI5 records. He wants to retrieve the file that Allison was planning to leak. Standish tells him where he can find the file, and River and Guy escort him to the facility. Hoping to cover up the file that Sean is seeking, First Desk Ingrid Tierney orders that everyone inside the facility be killed. The Slow Horses and Sean have to work together to fight their way out, with Sean losing his life in the process. Meanwhile, Lamb rescues Standish and is forced to fight off agents sent by Tierney to kill him, alongside everyone involved in the kidnapping and rescue. Tierney's really on a spree here. On the way back home, Lamb and Standish get into an argument over Standish's former boss, Charles' partner, and she resigns. River leaks the file to the world, resulting in both Secretary Judd and Tierney losing their jobs, and Taverner becoming First Desk. In the end, it becomes clear that the entire saga was orchestrated by Taverner herself in order to force Tierney out and take control of MI5. So lots of twists and turns and secret plots unveiled throughout the season. I have to say, despite how maybe all over the place that summary sounded, I did appreciate how focused this plot really was this season. This entire season takes place over really just a single day. They keep making references to this morning throughout the season, and I'm like, oh yeah, wow, this really is all just taking place in such a tight time frame. But really, I think what the focused nature of the plot did is it let the characters shine. And of course, that's what we really all come for Jackson Lamb, his ridiculous insults, and of course River Cartwright, who we're always rooting for, hoping to see him win the day, and he always finds a way to kind of trip and fall on his face, right? But I really enjoyed the new characters as well. Sean Donovan especially. I think he's a complicated person. You don't totally know his intentions at the beginning of the season. You kind of see them play out as they go. You think maybe he's more of a villain, and then you become more, I think, compassionate towards him towards the end. But really great addition to the cast in Sope Derisu. My favorite moment of the season, though, has to be a funny one, and that's towards the end when Roddy drives in with a party bus. He crashes it into the building where Jackson Lamb is trying to fight his way out of. And of course, Jackson's already handled the situation, so Roddy doesn't really do anything. And it's just so funny. He wants to be a part of the story so badly, and just causes, of course, all this destruction in his path. The thing I love about the show is it consistently delivers a brilliant, thrilling, and entertaining story in just 6 episodes per season. I think that's the perfect length for this kind of story. I don't think we want to live with any of these kind of conspiracies and twists and turns for too terribly long. I think 6 episodes is just the perfect amount. Keeps it nice and tidy. And I think it really is just the perfect way to adapt these books. You know, it's a series of books that are all kind of building on each other and telling the stories of these characters, but keeping it tight, I think, really just helps us stay connected to the story and see the overarching story season to season.
What I really love about this season is how it depicts the betrayal, not just between Slough House and MI5, but other secret agents in this world. And whilst I got to say, and I'm going to say this controversially, some of the action kind of took me a little bit out of the story this season. There were some moments in this that I really thought was going to see character dynamics play in completely different ways to how they did, including Catherine's relationship to Jackson Lamb and how that inadvertently ends up not kind of working out the way that we all suspect it will over the first few episodes. Kind of going, oh yeah, this is Jackson Lamb. This isn't the soft underbelly that we're starting to see kind of protrude, and he's back to old ways by the season finale. I often forget when I'm watching this that, yes, this is quite heavy hitting on its drama in a lot of ways, but there definitely seems to be a tongue-in-cheek element to Slow Horses. In some ways, a bit of a parody of Jean Le Carré's work. That, of course, was celebrated in the Pigeon Tunnel just a few months ago on Apple TV+. And maybe that is why I appreciate this more as a tongue-in-cheek, almost comedy, rather than the straight drama with a highlight this week, Criminal Record, which, of course, vies into similar subjects. I think that is why season 3 felt a little bit different to me, but on retrospect, I loved it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I do think they take maybe the corruption of MI5 to its furthest extent. When I found out that Taverner was the one behind the kidnapping this season, the same way she was behind the kidnapping first season, I was like, okay, so we're doing this again. But it really is, it's Slough House, these outcasts who turn out to be the ones who truly embody the ideals of MI5. They're the ones doing all the work anyway, right? They're having to undo all the damage that's being done at this higher level so one person can take another person's job. And I think if you take it too seriously, yeah, you can kind of get in your head about it, but enjoying it as what it is, as a comedy, and laughing along and, appreciating the plot for what it is. But it really is, as you said, so tongue-in-cheek and hilarious in that way. My big question at the end of season 3, every season remembers Charles Partner, right? He's a very central character. The mystery of what was going on with him is kind of played out, and I think it's going to continue to play out now with this impact on the relationship between Lamb and Standish. But what I want to know is, when is Olivia Cooke's Sid coming back? We left her at the end of season 1 in a coma, the result of some poor decisions on River Cartwright's part and kind of his guilt there. But we haven't mentioned or seen her since then. And with a show that's so focused on continuity of the characters, I would really like to see her condition addressed, maybe see her come back. I don't know. I haven't read the books. But I have to imagine with the way this show sticks with its characters over such a long period of time that we'll have to see her eventually. Now, regardless, season 3 of Slow Horses is now available to stream on Apple TV+. As usual, the finale ends with a teaser for season 4, which has already been filmed. But we also already know that the series will continue beyond even that, with news this week that Slow Horses will return for a 5th season. We even got a little teaser here for what to expect. In season 5, everyone is suspicious when resident tech nerd Roddy Ho has a glamorous new girlfriend. But when a series of increasingly bizarre events occurs across the city, it falls to the Slow Horses to work out how everything is connected. After all, Lamb knows that in the world of espionage, London rules should always apply. Intriguing little tidbit of what we can expect, not from the next season, but from the season after next of Slow Horses. A long and I would imagine successful history ahead of the show. Such a gem for Apple TV Plus, and one that if you haven't dove into, there's now 3 wonderful seasons to catch up on before season 4, which maybe we could see this year sometime.
I think so. I think maybe Q2 of this year, which is normally the rollout that we expect from Slow Horses. I hope we see many, many, many more seasons to come. I know Gary Oldman has basically said he'd be happy to play this character until the point that he retires. So fingers crossed, retirement is far, far away. Of course, you can check out all 3 seasons of Slow Horses across all of your screens on Apple TV+. We have some Secret Santa reviews coming up, but before that, of course, every week, as per usual, we have our Up Next picks from the TV app. What is your Up Next pick from the TV app this week?
Well, my pick is a series that I really enjoyed over the holiday break. They were rolling out 1 episode per day for a week and a half, which was a really cool release schedule. This is What If on Disney+. Of course, this comes from the world of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's telling stories of other worlds within the multiverse where slightly different events have taken place. So you get different takes on Marvel superheroes like Peggy Carter as Captain Carter, where she becomes the super soldier instead of Captain America. You get a really cool alternate version of Doctor Strange. But my favorite episode of What If Season 2 introduces an entirely new superhero to the world of Marvel, someone who hasn't even appeared in comics before. Her name is Cohorty, and she's a Mohawk woman who's introduced in an episode that centers on what would have happened if the Tesseract had landed in the United States during the time of colonialism. And it's a really, really cool episode. Marvel worked with the Mohawk tribe to really bring an accurate and positive portrayal of these people into the show, including speaking their language with subtitles throughout most of the episode, which is really, really cool. I just thought it was really neat the way they're using this series to introduce new characters in a way that we haven't really seen before. And I can't wait to see Cohorty come, hopefully, to the live-action Marvel Cinematic Universe at some point. I think that would be amazing. So if you're into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if you want to see some different takes on those characters that you love, this is a really cool series to check out. Animated series with some fun takes on your favorite Marvel characters.
I agree. This is one of my picks going into the new year. I love the risk-taking involved with this series, and that is why I rejoined for Season 2 after loving Season 1 of What If. Yeah, fantastic pick. My pick this week is a 4-part miniseries that aired this week on ITVX, on Apple TV, in the UK, of course, available in other regions if you know how. And it stars Toby Jones in the retelling of one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in British legal history, where hundreds of innocent sub-postmasters and postmistresses were wrongly accused of theft, fraud, and false accounting due to a defective IT system that was installed. It focuses on the different stories from different people. Many lost their homes through the money that they were falsely told they owed and had stolen from the post office. Some, unfortunately, had lost their lives. And others had lost the trust and the livelihood of being a pillar in their communities. This is a really shocking true life story that is still being played out today. It starts with Mr. Bates. He retires from the post office after being told incorrectly that he owed all of this money and refused to admit guilt, whereas a lot of other people were pressured into doing so. And during his retirement, he started a website and managed to find out that he wasn't alone. And in fact, that everyone that had been accused had been lied to, saying that they were alone. Only for this to uncover a massive conspiracy between the post office, which was owned by the UK government at the time, and Fujitsu, who were in charge of the systems that were put in place and forcefully denied the fact that they had access to the accounting systems for all of the post offices. It is devastating. It's brilliantly told. And despite it being quite heavy, there is an uplifting message at the end. It also culminates in a documentary on the real life people and the real life experiences and the real trial that ended up being heard, and the ongoing battle for criminality to be removed from certain cases. Some people, of course, spending many years behind bars falsely. So highly, highly recommend checking it out. It's a great British drama, a story that needs to be heard, and a story that has been told in such a beautiful, beautiful way. So that is my pick this week, Mr. Bates versus the Post Office on ITVX. I also have another recommendation, and that is to keep your eyes on Sundance. Sundance Film Festival single tickets are on sale January 11th. So if there are particular films that you want to check out, then you can do so, of course, in person in Utah or online. There is a limited array of films available for people to check out online. Unfortunately, Girls State, which is the Apple original that's going to air during the festival, isn't one of those. But a certain action film with June Squibb in her first lead role at 93 years old should be on everyone's radars as a potential Apple purchase this year. Thelma, get your tickets on January 11th. I think it's going to be a worthwhile watch, and hopefully a film we'll be talking about later on in the year if things go the way I predict. You never know, I might be right 3 years in a row.
Well, I'll never doubt you, Sigmund. You've got a great track record on predicting Apple's Sundance purchases, and definitely an exciting opportunity to get some new Apple original films in the mix. Now, speaking of mixing it up, you and I had a little, we'll call it a game, at the end of last year where we gifted each other one film each on the Apple TV app. I think one that kind of reflects our own tastes and gives the other person an opportunity to maybe see and review something that they normally wouldn't watch. I gifted you Taylor Swift The Eras Tour. You gifted me Beau is Afraid. And we both watched those over the holiday break, and now we're going to be sharing our reviews of them. Sigmund, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Let's go with Taylor Swift.
Okay.
The Eras Tour. Firstly, I'm aware of Taylor's music, but wasn't aware of how much of her music I had inadvertently heard in passing, because beyond Evermore, which I think came out a few years ago, I hadn't really ventured into her musical world. That said, you know how much we worry about the future of cinema and the shared theatrical experience, and her Eras Tour concert film brought in a ton of money last year. Also, you know, what I loved about the precedence of that was also that it was able to make the concert experience available to fans that couldn't afford to go to the in-person experience, and thus made her art more accessible, which I thought was a fantastic byproduct of this rollout, and thought was very, very clever. The music, though, is quite a bit tamer to what I'm used to. Having worked in hard rock and metal from a young age up until the mid-2010s. But what this film did for me was relive the absolute buzz of large-scale live music, being on the side of the stage where musicians were playing to tens or hundreds of thousands of people, is an insane experience. And whilst there's no over-the-arm, intimate, like Darren Aronofsky style shots, instead we're favouring a traditional presentation of this concert, I did have the hairs on the back of my neck stand up a few times. Now, I also appreciated what I perceived to be odes to David Byrne and others that led the way through some of the choreography that went on. There's also hilarious moments of fans just overwhelmed by a mixture of the celebrity and the spectacle of Taylor Swift and the Eras Tour. And a mix of emotions that are clearly conjured up when listening to her back catalogue, which will be the soundtracks for many through good times and through sad times. I loved that element of this. The one thing I thought was a little bit lacking in the presentation, because I watched this surround, very much like how people did in cinemas, was I would have loved to hear a little bit more of the crowd in the mix. Even really the intro at the beginning of the concert with the countdown timer. Looking at some of the videos on social media of that countdown timer in the crowd, I think it would have really set the scene a lot better if we would have just seen the whole stadium and everyone kind of counting down and screaming as soon as they saw that clock appear. The big production standouts to me were the incredible lighting and the video floor. Mainly for a specific moment where Taylor dives into the video floor and swims to the other side. It's a surprising moment, not just for me, but for her fans. That's straight from the world of Vegas illusionists and magicians, and I laughed so hard when one of the crowd appeared to scream in horror, thinking her idol had just hurt herself in the most horrific of ways. But no, it was part of the show. Overall, Devon, I really enjoyed actually this experience, albeit 3 hours was a lot. This reminded me, though, of why music has and continues to be such an important part of my life and so many others. My personal live music experiences actually started with a surprise trip in 1994 to Michael Jackson's Dangerous Tour at Wembley Stadium, and this felt like the modern day version of that. My experiences actually ended up by touring with big metal and rock bands, and later some of the biggest pop artists still performing today. But years ago, I sat down with Dave Grohl, who told me about how he sat down during Live Aid with his buddies, thinking they were too cool for the lineup. That was until he said Freddie Mercury and Queen took the stage. Taylor's performance is different as it borrows heavily from music video and theatre, but there are some similarities here. And I'd imagine she will have a similar effect on upcoming musicians and anyone really that's looking to come into the arts. It wasn't something I think I would have experienced on my own accord, but I'm really, really happy I did. It made me feel great. And I'm hoping that feeling was mirrored with my gift to you.
Yeah, so I gifted you Taylor Swift The Eras Tour, and in turn, you gifted me Beau is Afraid. I'll say, just like you said, it's not something I would have sought out on my own, which I appreciate you pushing me to try something new. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before. I can honestly say I've never seen a film quite like this. It's so unique in so many different ways. Just for some context for those who haven't seen it, I'll give a quick synopsis, but I'll just tell you it's almost impossible to describe what's happening in this movie if you haven't seen it. It follows a man named Beau, played by Joaquin Phoenix, who lives with crippling anxiety and guilt. He misses a flight to visit his mother, and then his life just completely falls apart. Everything he's ever feared comes true in an excruciating string of seemingly random and traumatizing events. Again, that is a very high-level synopsis of what is a very, I would say, complicated and deep film. It kind of falls on the horror side of things. That's what I was expecting going into it. But after seeing it, I can also see the way that it's also comedy in a very dark way. Reading up on it afterwards, I saw some describe it as a nightmare movie, which I would say feels just about right. Objectively, it's a good movie. I will say that. It looks good. It's well done. You know, from a technical perspective and even from, you know, the story development and character development, it is a good movie. I like a lot of things that it's doing, but I hate what it did to me while I was watching it and the way I felt walking away. Now, to be fair, not everything in the world is supposed to make you feel good, right? There are things that are supposed to make you think and reflect. I think that's more what this film is meant to do. Emotionally, for me, it was quite an experience. I will say, from the beginning of the film, I related to Beau in a lot of ways. I personally am someone who deals with just some natural anxiety, nothing clinical, but just my way of approaching the world. I kind of feel the way that Beau feels in a lot of ways. His first line in the movie is that he accidentally drank mouthwash and he's nervous about it. And I just, from that moment, I was like, okay, this is my guy, because I've been there. You know, you try to clean your mouth out with mouthwash, you accidentally swallow a little bit of it, and you think, okay, do I need to call poison control? That is 100% me. There's a moment where he's rushing to get home behind a safe door because he feels like he's being chased by someone. And that moment of relief when he shuts the door behind him, totally been there. Fear of taking medicine the wrong way. He's supposed to take his medicine with water, and he runs out of water. I've 100% been there. I read the directions on my medicine 3-4 times before I ever take it because I'm always afraid of taking it the wrong way. Even this one's kind of bizarre, but it's something that I related to in such a weird way. The fear of getting into the bath or the shower and someone being there that you're not expecting. I have that.
Oh God. Yes.
I have to leave my shower curtain partially drawn at all times because I'm afraid that someone's going to come in and be hiding in there. And that's not a moment that you want to bump into somebody that you're not expecting. And that's something that happens to Bo throughout the film. So there are just these moments that I really just connected with him, especially in the first, I'd say, act of the film, where Bo was really someone that I could relate to. I saw myself in him. And I think that maybe made what happens to him throughout the rest of the film kind of hard for me to watch. Because we learn more about Bo as it goes along, things that are happening with him below the surface that have kind of gotten him to this point where he's so anxious and feeling guilty all the time. He's got an absent father who passed away, according to his mom, during his conception, which leads to a whole other thing where he can't have intimate relationships with people. He has a deceased twin who passed away when he was a child, whose memory has been forcefully repressed by his mother. He's separated from his childhood sweetheart, Elaine, whom he promised to wait for, and he has kept that promise throughout his life. Of course, ultimately, I think his issues go back to his overbearing mother, who keeps tabs on every little slight that he commits against her, even those that he has no control over. And so what this gives him is just a general lack of control over anything in his life, because everything is eventually revealed to be orchestrated by his mother, who uses her conglomerate's involvement in medication, treatment, housing, and more to control every single aspect of his life. And so really it's a sad portrayal of a man whose agency has been completely ripped from him, leaving him helpless, alone, and hollow. And that's really what I walked away from the film with.
I want to kind of stick up for myself a moment.
Okay, sure.
Because there are a few things that I thought, okay, Devon, this is going to be a challenging watch for Devon, but if he gets the comedy aspect, some things may throw him for a loop, and I don't even know to this point if you even realise that these things happened. So, of course, Patti LuPone plays Mona Wasserman, who is the mother of Bo, who dies at the beginning of the film. We'll leave it at that. When Bo, I think the second act, Bo is taken in by a family. The family is led by Nathan Lane, who, of course, played Timon in Lion King, which is hilarious to me. And they have a daughter called Tony, played by Kylie Rogers, who was, of course, in the Apple original series Home Before Dark. There's also a very, very short cameo from C's Argylle, who is also in an Ari Aster film called Midsummer, which I highly, highly recommend, although I can understand you may need a bit of a break before diving into that one. What I didn't realise until the fourth time I'd watched this film, because I saw it the first time in cinemas and kind of hated it, as much as I appreciated the filmmaking and the risk that was put into this. It wasn't until I bought it and watched it at home a couple of times that I really understood the comedy. There's lots of hidden clues in the backgrounds that what is happening on purpose and isn't just part of this kind of like psychosis that you initially think Bo is going through. It's not obvious, and that's what I like about this film, is nothing is given to you. It's so surreal at times that it's a film that you can't go along with and try and work out. You almost have to succumb to. I'm really, really happy that you got a chance to check it out. I'm sorry it made you feel the way it made you feel, and I'll be honest, when I rewatched this at the same time knowing that you were watching it, there were certain moments where I was like, oh, I don't remember this being so harsh. Ari Aster is just an incredible talent. Beau is Afraid apparently had a lot of influence on Killers of the Flower Moon, which I thought was really interesting. Martin Scorsese said as much when he introduced Beau is Afraid in New York when it had its initial screening. And Joaquin Phoenix is up for Best Actor at the Golden Globes this week for that portrayal.
And that's completely well-deserved. He did an incredible job playing Beau, and he really did. I think he's a character that you can root for, feel bad for, and you do question his sanity throughout the movie. And I think you're completely right that eventually you just have to come to terms with the fact that, at least in the world of this movie, all this is happening to him. It is real. Mm-hmm. His worst fears are coming true, and you're watching a man just kind of experience that. I kept expecting a turn where he woke up, or it turned out he was in therapy and he was kind of, elaborating on some fantasy in his head that he was afraid of. And the film doesn't give you that. But I think you're right that you don't... Watching this film, I was trying too much to analyze and understand it, and that's not really what it's about. And like you said, there are some hilarious moments. Nathan Lane and Amy Ryan as Beau's abductors / people who want to adopt him, kind of. They were hilarious. There's some really great signs in the background, including one I caught that said, "Jesus sees your abominations," which just made me laugh. And then there's also a sequence towards the end of the second act where he comes across a traveling theater troupe. Everything about that whole part made me laugh. And it was also a beautiful kind of partially animated fantasy within Beau's head that was really beautiful as well. So yeah, I would say this film is worth watching as long as you go in knowing that it's very intense and you kind of just have to take it for what it is. You can't expect it to be what you want it to be. Don't expect a bow on the end to kind of wrap it up and leave you walking away with a smile, because that's not what this is. But it is a masterfully made film from Ari Aster about our every fear coming true. And there is some catharsis in that, just in recognizing, I think, our own fears, maybe, and learning to live with them. Still processing the film, but I appreciate you gifting it to me. And I did enjoy it. And it is probably one that I will rewatch at some point when I'm ready. Maybe after another viewing of Taylor Swift The Eras Tour to kind of lift my spirits a little bit. We'll see. Either way, I had fun with our Secret Santa gift exchange this year. I think we might have to make this a tradition.
Absolutely. And I think I'm going to go back to listening to some Mariah Carey after this recording.
Nope. Nope. Never again. Nope, I think the film kind of ruined that song for me forever. Anyway, on that note, that's what we've got for you this week. Thank you so much for listening. We always welcome your feedback, so be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review there. You can also contact us on social media via the links in the show notes, or send us an email or iMessage to mrolfm@screentimes.net. We'll be back next time to dive into everything in the world of Apple TV. So until then, stay safe, watch some Apple TV, play some Apple Arcade, and have a great week.